What is up, Reject Nation? Here we go. Kevin Feige reportedly has a little response here regarding the whole Scarlett Johansson suing Disney over the Black Widow release. Just the super quick, super short recap of the situation is that Scarlett Johansson is claiming in the lawsuit that this movie contractually is supposed to have an exclusive theatrical release, meaning only in the theaters, and that they breached their contract by putting it on a dual strategy release with Disney Plus, and that there was an email exchange. See, that's the part about and the statements that were released. They were saying that they talked about an email. I don't know if it's in the contract. That's something we have to all keep in mind. 99.9999% of us who are tuning into this news and whatever, no matter how great of a breakdown someone might give on this, they're not lawyers. Most people aren't. Most people don't even have a law degree. And most of us don't know what the actual contract itself says right now. So a lot of this is becoming public, but there's still so much more that we do not actually know what is written down, typed up, what was signed, everything like that. But basically, part of the email exchange is that if there was to be some changes with the releasing, since so much of this is based off of Scarlett Johansson earning money, her team also earning money off of box office points and whatnot, that there should be renegotiation. So it said there was an email exchange. They didn't say that was in the contract, right?
Email from 2019.
Right, exactly. And then, sometimes in court that might constitute as part of a legal agreement just because it was said in email. But, that's what I mean. This is a whole bunch of areas here to unpack. This is why this is a big thing. This is why it's a big deal. And then, of course, Disney responded the day that all this broke, which was yesterday, saying that they didn't breach any contract whatsoever. Yeah, like where we basically stand amongst all this. And there are people who've done some great breakdowns. Like I think John Campea and Grace Randolph from Beyond the Trailer, who are best friends from my understanding.
They love each other.
What they want to
they
both
time.
want to be lumped into the same sentence all the time. But those two, they've given some pretty great breakdowns. A lot of people were especially recommending Grace Randolph's Our Way, and I did listen to them, and they are wonderful. But where we basically stand on the whole gist of the situation, even after hearing Disney's response, is that if Scarlett Johansson's statements are to be believed, or her team's statements are to be believed, that if they are supposed to enter renegotiation, if they did not discuss prior to the dual strategy release or renegotiate after, like there was no communication about that whatsoever, if they were actually like ghosted in the way they were saying, that is completely messed up. So with all this though, and a lot of people were wondering, like, what did Kevin Feige have to say? What is Kevin Feige's thoughts on this? Because Scarlett Johansson's lawsuit is against Disney themselves, not necessarily Marvel. I know Marvel is part of Disney, but this is towards Disney. So according to the Hollywood Reporter editor Matthew Belloni, sounds like an Italian man, Feige apparently lobbied Disney to keep Black Widow a theatrical-only release to not upset Johansson. And then Belloni reports, Feige is a company man and prone to corporate showdowns or shouting matches, but I'm told he's angry and embarrassed. He lobbied Disney against the day-and-date plan for Black Widow, preferring the big screen exclusivity and not wanting to upset his talent. Furthermore, the report says that when the shit hit the fan, the movie started tanking and Johansson's team threatened litigation. Feige tried to get Disney to make right with her. So if this is to be true, because this is coming from the editor over at Hollywood Reporter, and a lot of people are running with this as if for sure this is what Feige is thinking and saying and yada, 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 because Hollywood Reporter, for the most part, can be a reliable source. It's the Hollywood Reporter. If this is to be true, it sounds like he's on the side where a lot of the fans actually are right now. He obviously has a great relationship with Scarlett Johansson. First as just an actress who was hired for Black Widow, and then as a producing partner for this movie. And I don't blame Kevin Feige for feeling this way. It's from the outside looking in, it really seemed like, a lot of this has seemed like Feige really wanted to just keep it for theatrical release as well. And I think the last thing he'd want is for this situation to occur. Every once in a while, you hear stories of like, there's the Marvel side and Feige running it, and then he's having some issues with the higher ups at Disney and having to make this all work. But Feige's most plugged in with his fans, and I feel like he has a strong relationship formed with Scarlett Johansson that I think the last thing he'd ever want is for her to feel cheated out in some way, that he would want her to feel properly serviced. But John, what's your take on what's going on here so far?
Yeah, I mean, this is in line with what was pitched yesterday, in that they said Disney strong-armed Marvel into doing this, essentially. I mean, I don't know if Kevin Feige and Scarlett Johansson spoke at all behind the scenes. It kind of doesn't sound like it, so I'm curious to know what kind of like muzzling or restriction he might have been kept under until this all broke, and now it's a mess, and now there's at least a bit more carte blanche for reports like this to come out. But yeah, I don't blame him at all for being upset, and it does seem like one of those things where, yeah, if you're the leader of this ship and you are trying to attract this, you know, Oscar caliber of talent, especially with your actors who are going to be the face of these characters, yeah, you don't want this reputation of like, you know, I don't have control enough to even make, you know, sure that our parent company honors their contracts and all that. So I'm not at all surprised that he would be upset, because I mean, yeah, even though the movies and the universe they built is bigger than just the actors or whatever, and I know there are people out there who are like, don't you have enough money, Scarlett Johansson? But it does seem kind of like a shifty thing coming from Disney. And if you look at the report yesterday, again, we don't know what's in the actual contract, but you know, they do kind of deflect, or you can look at it that way, being like, we didn't breach contract, and like, look at what was going on in the world, like we were just trying to be the good guy, when it doesn't really preclude you from being able to also talk to somebody and say, hey, we need to do this. And I mean, just from a personal level, I look at Black Widow the movie and I'm like, in a sense, that could have been released at any point on the Phase 4 timeline, really. I mean, as much as people gripe about its sort of isolated feeling, that could have helped the theatrical release that much more, and had they had waited, it could have been much more of a success.
But they have that post-credit scene, John.
That's right, and we can't get too far into that storyline without showing this tease, otherwise people are going to be like, yeah, we know. But yeah, I'm very curious as to how this is going to shake out, because obviously, I mean, you know, Marvel is a gigantic asset to Disney, but also a rift like this that's so public and so ugly, you know, is not going to just work out peachy for everybody. So I'm curious to know what's going to kind of pan out from this.
I mean, like for me, yesterday when I was reading the reports, I was like, okay, there's no way in hell Scarlett Johansson ever has a chance of like this. This is putting her career on the line. Like this is the biggest studio in the world right now, who she's going toe to toe with, and she's getting a lot of credit. And yeah, absolutely, like good for her for going up against like the biggest studio ever. But you know, there's also the side of it of like, well, if her relationship with Feige is still good, maybe there's a chance of something potentially ongoing. I mean, that's regard,
the
you know,
yeah, it's like only if her relationship with him holds. And I mean, to his credit, it sounds like his heart is in the right place on this one, and I don't know what action he can take, but at least, you know, this isn't a direct quote, you know, this is being sort of what I'm hearing. Yeah. But yeah, that is heartening to me, because that's part of the worry, is like, oh God, is Marvel down for this shady practice too? You know, if the practice is in fact shady, as they say.
Yeah, because I think that yesterday when I see it all, I saw plenty of it, people being like, well, what did you expect from Disney? Of course, there's the pandemic going on. This movie was delayed countless times. They just can't pay for more marketing. I'm like, that's not the point. The why behind them doing it, the dual strategy, that's not really what's in question. Is why we all know why they did it.
Yeah, it's very understandable.
It's very
why they did it.
Why they did it.
It's how they did it.
It's how they went about it, and there's a lot of things. There's a lot of contracts involved. There's a lot of players involved, and at the end of the day, they should have talked with her and her team prior to deciding to do this, or if they're going to make the decision without talking with her, they got to renegotiate with her to properly compensate her for everything that she would have lost in the box office revenue.
Especially if it was as adamant a demand of theirs that it be released theatrically. I feel like if that was a thing, they were constantly like, no, we want to maintain this. Like, you can't. How do you avoid that conversation unless you try?
Yes.
You know?
I mean, they're saying here that on the Disney release statement from yesterday that she's earning money off of the Premier Access thing. But like I said, there's so much different hullabaloo of numbers and everything that we're like, well, how much does she really want? Reportedly, it was $50 million. There's other reports saying that she wants to be able to get residuals off of anything that she's involved with that is streaming on the on the Disney Plus, you know, anything Avengers related, basically, that she's involved with. Which this lawsuit's a big deal, because this can open up a whole can of worms, not just for Scarlett Johansson and Disney, but everyone.
Anyone who's had their
Like-
movie simultaneously released
Like
lately.
this is I imagine like Scarlett Johansson's got great lawyers. She's Scarlett Johansson. But I imagine Disney's got to have like the best lawyers. So
Yeah, and they have infinitely more money to pay
yeah.
for them.
So as much as it's like about billions versus the millions, I'm still like I'm rooting for Scarlett Johansson on this just because I mean it's a crazy story.
Yeah.
She does walk out like winning in some way, you know. It's a long shot, you know. As much as we all feel what is right, as much as we have our voice of public opinion, you know, a lot of the times it doesn't freaking matter. So
No, I mean they're not being like, what do the people want us to do in this case?
But yeah, guys, leave your thoughts down below on what you think. What do you think about what Kevin Feige had to say? What's your thoughts on the situation so far? This is a fascinating tale to unpack here. And yeah, we're along for the journey. And we'll still watch Marvel's What If. We're still excited for all that.
You know,
Yeah, well, I am still excited for all that.
It's the bit, separate art from the business, man.
All right, guys, leave your thoughts down below and we'll talk with you soon.